So just to introduce you, you are the author of the Brennan and Riz stories. Um,
Yes.
yes, can you hear me all right?
Yeah. Um, I'm the author. I write the Brennan and Riz, the Strange Tales of Brennan and Riz, who up to date have had over 20 short stories published through a short story collection and through the Harvey Duckman Presents anthology
Yeah.
volumes.
So you're one of our regular Harveys, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay, so just
In every single one so far.
so just to sort of set the way that we met was through crossing the T's.
Yes, it was the. I don't know if it was actually
I
it
think it
was
was
the first one that had an
first one.
anthology.
Yeah,
So
it was the
once there
first.
was a thing before them, but it's the first anthology.
Yeah, there were Crossing the T's book festivals before that. It was the first year that we were invited to do the short story competition. And we do the shortlisting and then we publish the anthology. And there was one of the stories really stood out. And it was like, oh my goodness, we love these characters. So this is how we sort of approached you, got in touch and we've ended up working together for the past few years. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into writing? What's your background in writing? And then we'll specifically come on to Brennan and Riz a bit later on.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously, as a kid, I did stories as well, but it was sort of got pushed. Not pushed completely aside. It was more of a. I think originally I wanted to like, be a game designer, and so stories are obviously important, an element of design. And so I focused more on that. But then, in 2004, when I went to college, I started writing properly. In the space of a year, I wrote 3 stories which will never see the light of day because of their quality. I think I did. They were posted online at one point to my friend's website at that time, but that website's long gone. So, um, but I kept on writing regardless of the output. And there's one story that I done story series that I didn't actually use. Pretty much developed from 2005 onward until about 2015. I was just trying to get that tuned up, but that never sadly didn't really go anywhere because I got hooked in by one of these vanity publishers who, but that's the whole other story.
It wasn't a good experience, was it? But you've
You know?
managed to actually put that behind you and move on with a set of characters who are amazing, and you're creating a name for yourself as a writer. So even though you had a bad experience, I know it knocked your confidence massively in
Yeah,
sort of encountering that side of the publishing industry. But being based here in Teesside, you're very much grounded here. And I know that now you've got a massive following for your Brennan and Riz stories.
yeah. Well, thanks to like interaction on Twitter, and I do daily writing prompts on Twitter. And I actually use Brendan Riz characters through them, so they've got a massive audience there. But I would say the first big chunk of the stories did all take place locally. Because every time I think like what's next for Brendan Riz, I try and focus on something that like a place nearby. Is like, well, and I've got tons of stories that happen all around us. Like the second Brennan Riz story I did, Goblins in the Tunnel, it takes place under the streets of Stockton because I'd always heard stories from my dad about how there's supposed to be tunnels in there, but I always just fobbed them off as like half stories. But then I looked into it, it's like, no, there is actually tunnels there, and there's a lot to do with them. And then when doing more research, I came across folklore that there was supposed to be goblins underneath Stockton Castle at one point.
Hey,
So it just all led into one thing after another. And
just let people know if they're not familiar with your stories. It's paranormal detective with a deep grounding in folklore, mythos, and then like you said, the local area. We've got stories that feature Preston Park, the River Tees, the Riverside Stadium.
Yeah, so Riverside Stadium was one of the fun ones there. As I'd always try to while there's some stories that has been things that have been some original ideas, I always try more often not to do things that are based on real things, so people can go, oh, I know that place. And that's one of the things that I've enjoyed but writing this version of Brennan and Riz, because way back, I think it was 2013 or 2014, I originally developed Brennan as a different sort of character originally, completely, and it was a sci-fi tale. And Riz, well, the place of Riz would have been taken by a small robot fitting the thing. And it obviously, when I heard about crossing the T's, I revamped Brennan, and that's when Riz came into it. That's sidekick, and then from then on, it's just the pair have just gained more of a liking and the following. And it's been quite funny actually to see how much of a fan base Riz has gotten for himself, considering what kind of character he is. Because the pair are completely opposites in a lot of ways. Brennan is cool, tries to keep cool-headed and stays grounded, while Riz is a greedy, selfish little rat who just
literally a talking rat.
Yes.
But one of the things that we love about your work is that you've they're very light-hearted, they are funny, they're very dry, set in local places, local folklore, but there's a dark undercurrent of something big that Riz knows all about that just filters through every now and then.
That's one of the aims I kind of I wanted to achieve doing it, but it's sometimes it becomes easier than not.
Yeah, and that's led to, you actually got a novel coming out this year, don't you? So the Brennan and Riz have their first novel, full-length novel, that's due out later this year.
A Boy and a Rat. The story of how they met. I mean, obviously keeping with the same style, it's the first part starts off like Monday, but then goes into like basically how they, as I say, is how they first met and everything that came from that first meeting. It does answer some questions about Riz, but also leaves a lot more open.
Yeah, because what we want.
Yeah, I don't want to give everything away.
Yeah, more questions, more mystery. So going back to what you mentioned about Twitter, so how important is, so being a writer here in Teesside, you're part of our Six Element bunch of Harvey writers, but you are part of a big community of writers online, which is worldwide on Twitter. Do you think it's important for local, so for writers anywhere, wherever they are, they can actually be part of something that's a lot bigger? How important do you feel that is to your promoting your work?
Well, I would never, obviously, the thing I always remember promoting Twitter is that unless you got like a lot of non-writers in there, you're promoting to writers, but there's a lot of help on there for you. All the people I've encountered, all the writers I've encountered on Twitter so far have always been immensely helpful, always been friendly, always willing to lend a pair of eyes to help you find something you might have missed. And it can also just bounce ideas back and forth to things. So it's really been great for me to go on there, put myself out there, and just make all these friends that would never known, like people in far away from Japan, like in America, people I never would have met any other way, but I've been connected to, and just speaking to them, just helping where I can, as they've helped me when they can. I was even part of a podcast for a little while that was made up of me and someone else from England, and then two others from in the United States, and then we were joined later on by another English author. So something like that wouldn't have happened without Twitter.
Yeah, and I can remember when we were first talking, you were quite hesitant about jumping into social media, and then within weeks you had thousands of followers on Twitter, and there's this massively engaged audience.
Oh, my followers have sort of stabilized at the moment at 15,000. But that was one of the things that I was really cautious about jumping because of what social media is and what I'd have to do. But it came quite natural. And I say once I found the word prompts, like the prompt games, that really helps speed things along because I was able to be creative and still engage with people,
Yeah.
especially when I get the feedback from people saying, "Oh, I love Riz," and dealing with people's questions about when they outpouring. And it has it's picked up as well by the other things for the other things I've been doing on there. It's like helped me further this while engaging.
Brilliant. So just to
Yep.
wrap up, our big part of this interview project is the COVID situation. But I know a lot of what you've been doing has been online anyway. So have you been affected by sort of the lockdown, and how has that affected your writing and getting your books out and about?
Um, in some ways, it hasn't because I've mainly been like you say, like I've made a lot of online. I've made some online sales. I've been like posting fiction online, and obviously I've been able to still send work out for the inclusion in the Harveys. But I also I was a shop I was working with, being able to get him to deliver some copies of the books to,
Yeah.
because obviously they've been shut throughout, and it's time I have myself. I've, the kids have been running around,
Yes, yeah.
so but
So
we make do what we can with it.
are you finding time to write?
Yes, I mean at the moment it's through my phone, but then again I wrote the first Ben and Riz story completely on the phone anyway, because I didn't get a laptop until a little while later. So it's nothing I'm not used to.
That's cool. Okay, brilliant. Is there anything you'd like to add? Because we're about out of time.
I'm just thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and it's great this being part of the thing. And I'm great that we're connected to a growing network of writers in Teesside because there's a lot of talent there, and I just need to get the voice out.
Yeah, and work together. This is one of the big aims for everybody, is to for everyone who's working in the creative industries in Teesside and actually creating, to collaborate and work together more. So thank you very much for joining us this morning and being
No
part of it.
problem.
Cool. Take care. Happy writing, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye for now.